The leaders of the two major political parties in Ghana, the NPP and the NDC, are warning their supporters who engage in acts of violence they will not protect or shield them, and have asked them to ensure peace before, during, and after the Supreme Court verdict on August 29.
The ground, okay, the securities are also on the ground, so we can share information about what are some of the potential hotspots.
We will not hide any of our members who does wrong. You understand? In any political party, there are the doves and then there are the hawks. Within our party, we know the hawks and we know the doves.
The show is brought to you by Blue Rose Limited, Shelter for All, and Star Life Assurance. My name is Bright Nanamfo. The two chairmen of the major political parties in Ghana, the NDC and the NPP, have met with officials of the national security to strategize on ensuring peace after the August 29 Supreme Court verdict. Dr. Kwabena Agyei and Jake Obechebi Lamte reaffirmed their commitment to peace, warning their supporters they will not condone acts that will destabilize the peace of the country. They again reaffirmed the commitment of the leaders of the two parties to peace.
We will not hide any of our members who does wrong. You understand? In any political party, there are the doves and then there are the hawks. Within our party, we know the hawks and we know the doves. And if we identify one to be a potential trouble causer, doing something that the majority would not do given the initiatives that have been mobilized to this stage, we'll give him away to the authorities, law enforcement. That one I want to send clearly to my followers, my executives. And I want to share that with the followers of MPP and then the executives of MPP. We are agreed. We want to show Ghana that we are brothers. You understand? We are brothers. And that if we are united, if we understand ourselves, then the rest of Ghana must get united and understand itself. That there is a stage in the life of a nation when it's almost come to the level or the precipice of violence. But good people like me and him stop it.
We are on the ground. Okay, the securities are also on the ground, so we can share information about what are some of the potential hotspots. About also critically within the media, getting the media to help us to lessen the tension in the country, so that those who come and speak very loosely can stop speaking quite so loosely. Okay, working with the media. We don't want to take people's free speech away. If Nana Akufo-Addo was not committed to accepting the court's decision, then there was no purpose in him going to court. You know, if you remember, the last time we met here, there was all the happenings, okay, and the NPP, okay, under Nana Akufo-Addo's leadership, because he was our presidential candidate, took the decision that we will seek redress in the courts. Okay, God so good, and the NPP, so well organized, we have been able to mount a very strong case. Having done that, the judges have given us no cause to believe that they will do anything other than judge this matter according to the law and according to their conscience and according to their vows of office.
And if this is what we need to make sure that August 29 will come and go peaceful and Ghana will remain same. This is today's big story, and this is what we'll be finding out from some think tanks who will be joining me right on phone. The Executive Director of the West African Network for Peace Building, Dr. Emmanuel Bombande, is first to join me on phone. Dr. Bombande, thanks so much for joining us on today's big story.
Yeah, hello, good evening to you and good evening to your viewers.
Right, and first of all, now, is this the sign that we need going into August 29 and beyond?
First of all, I am very happy at these recent developments beginning yesterday with the Supreme Court affirming the state, affirming the supremacy of the state, and calling all of us to order and reminding us that we are nothing before the state. And following on that, if you look at the strength of our nation, the peace that must be sustained and consolidated, it is when we remain united despite whatever challenges are before us, such as the petition before the Supreme Court. In this regard, I think it's a good development that the two chairpersons of our two leading political parties are talking in the way that they are doing by sending the signals to their own supporters that institutionally, when the parties begin to be held accountable, it is the followers of the parties who individually and collectively must also be held accountable. To that extent, there is no better person to remind the supporters of the political parties about their responsibilities to behave and live peace than their own leaders. And that is why, if you look at it in this context, I think the groundswell of activity and messages for peace are now being complemented beautifully by the leaders of the parties and also the affirmation of the state in the reminder of the possible sanctions to anybody who is caught crossing the line and violating our laws.
Dr. Bombandi, we see them throw arsenals at each other on radio or on television, on the newspapers, and generally in the media. Is this signal strong enough to ensure that we get the peace that we deserve?
Let me say that it is a signal that in itself we should appreciate, but I don't think it is strong enough. I think we want to go beyond just seeing the photo opportunities when they talk, and just beyond getting the reports of meetings in which they find themselves together, constantly asserting the authority of the leadership of these parties. Precisely because political parties in themselves must be a reflection of good institutions that are democratic. And that is why, when within the parties we see supporters misbehaving, violating the laws that protect citizens, and that assure us of our safety, it raises concerns. And let me be specific. If, for example, the ruling party were very firm, we will not have the type of behavior that we've seen from some party executives in Nkwanta North. Thanks be to God that the institution of the state, the police service, supported by the government, was very firm and refused to listen to these party executives as if to say that because they are party executives belonging to the ruling party, they will be treated differently.
Right.
And that has saved the day. We need to see more of such affirmations. And when that begins to happen, it is the political parties as institutions that grow strong. And when they grow strong, our democracy also becomes stronger.
Right. Dr. Bombandi, kindly stay on the line for me. Let me speak to the national chairman of the New Patriotic Party, Jake Obetsebelamte. He's just joined us on today's big story. Jake Obetsebelamte, thanks so much for joining us.
My privilege.
Right. Now, first of all, Dr. Bombandi of the West African Network for Peace Building thinks that the signal that the two major parties are throwing out in terms of showing unity and peace ahead of August 29 is not strong enough.
Well, I think if as a signal, everybody in this country will have been aware of it. You know, so as a signal, I think it is strong enough. I think what he's saying is that we need to always in this country to move beyond words into action.
Right.
And that is something that we in the MPP have constantly been saying. You remember that there was a peace summit in Kumasi before the last election.
Right.
Where we made that very point. Nana was very, very plain to say it has to be not just words, it has to be action. And we have always said that we are willing to match action with our words, but that at the beginning of everything, there has to be an attempt to get some sort of justice in place as well. But if we haven't done it, been able to get it right in the past, that should not stop us from continuing to work at it to try and get it right in the future.
Dr. Bombade again talks about the fact that you need strong institutions like political parties. Now, the signal is being shown at the very top, and the chairpersons having told the whole of Ghana that they are strongly united in peace, and whatever the outcome will be, they will be neither the loser nor the winner. Ghana is the winner. But how is this going to get to the grassroots, where most of the times you find conflict beginning from?
Through you. I mean, you must amplify what we say. You must amplify our actions. You must amplify the right actions and not always look for the wrong actions. We must start applauding those who get it right and not applauding those who get it wrong. Unfortunately, one of the problems that we have is that bad news sells better than good news. And therefore, the media, which feels it has a responsibility to sell itself, to be able to attract viewers and listeners and readers, okay, will go for the bad news before it goes for the good news. So maybe if all of us make a concerted effort to applaud those who do well and not give those who are being negative the opportunity to be heard above the ones who are trying hard, then all of us will be better off.
Mr. Betebilante, in Rwanda, a comment on a radio station plunged the country into chaos. Sometimes when the media gives out its platform for politicians to use in sending messages, the end result is what we've been seeing these last few days. Comments that are quite scary and get the country on the edge. How can we ensure that politicians, when given that platform, your party, politicians from your party, when given the platform, will not perhaps engage in acts that would disturb the peace of the country?
You are the one, when I come on your radio station or your TV station, or I'm going to appear in your papers, you are the one who controls the knobs. If I start saying something which you realize is not very helpful to the nation, turn me off.
Sometimes
just let me know that you're not going to
stop
give me...
it's not there. So it is said sometimes the technology to stop it is not there. So the harm is caused before we realize.
If it is said once and then we realize that what was said is not helpful, and so we don't repeat it, then it will die away. But if we keep on repeating it, okay, in Rwanda it wasn't one broadcast. Okay, it was a series of broadcasts that started it and kept it going. Okay, so I mean it's up to all of us. I mean, if I say something really outrageous now, like this, there are people in the media who will be happy to keep on repeating it. Okay, because they'll feel that everybody's going to listen to what did Jacob Betebilante say that was so outrageous. But if I say something sensible, then where's the news in that? So it's really going to be up to all of us to try to see if we can accentuate the positive and play down the negative.
Mr. Jacob Betebilante, thanks so much for joining us on today's big story.
Thank you.
Right. Dr. Bombande, if you are there and you heard Mr. Jacob Betebilante, he thinks that the media has a huge role to play in this. We have, but the constraints of the modern media sometimes leads us into trouble. Let me put it that way.
First of all, let me quickly elaborate on this. Do not forget that what the media reports is a reflection of what is deep in society. If you look at the example of Rwanda that you used,
right,
the environment for genocide was already existent. And what the media did was to catalyze that and to let it manifest itself regrettably and tragically as they did. Now, what we must be doing in Ghana is never allow an environment of hatred whether on the basis of politics, ethnicity, or religion, to be there in the first place. And it is for that reason that even in this discussion, let us not overflock ourselves, because I am very happy that our media is very active. Yes, the incidences of allowing the type of reckless comments cannot be appreciated. But if you look overall, it is unprecedented if you look at the African political context to have the chairpersons of the leading parties in the country to even meet together with a national security coordinator and issue a joint statement. So we must celebrate what we have. And to that extent, I think we are doing well. And let us not cast too much of negativity on our political terrain. But having said that, we are a distinction when you look at Africa's democratic terrain, and we must continue to add more. In this regard, I will want to suggest that the signal is a good one, and we should appreciate it. But beyond that, the party should be strong, particularly the leadership of the parties, to sanction people who violate the rules of the game and bring about the anxieties and tensions that our country experiences.
Then it comes to mind if these political parties even have guidelines as to how their followers should behave.
You see, each of these issues cannot be generalized. I think that the party leadership of the various political parties can study each incident and each situation related to the context in which it happens and come out publicly to reprimand their own and hold their own accountable. For example, there could be guidelines, but whether these parties have guidelines or not, they could not have foreseen guidelines specific to what happens during an election petition hearing.
Right.
So once we were in this particular period, the party leadership needed to develop their own mechanisms to hold their own accountable. And I think that will be sufficient. And to that extent, we want to see people who are supporters of the various political parties also recognizing that you have the freedom of association and assembly, but it comes with a responsibility. And that responsibility begins when your party holds you first accountable before even the agencies of the state, the police, then hold you accountable.
And let me quickly draw your attention to some issue, but I want us to stay on this issue of guidelines for political parties as far as their conduct is concerned. Yesterday in court, the counsel for the two NPP members, lawyer Nia Ikuotu, told the whole country that when you are a party official and you find yourself in a friendly environment, sometimes you tend to forget that you even have these guidelines, and so you go overboard and say all kinds of things. So these guidelines might be there, but political activity itself puts politicians in such a way that they are or they disobey their own guidelines.
I happen not to agree with the inference of Beshi as it was talked about. And I have reasons for that. When you emerge in your political party to occupy leadership, nobody has to tell you that that leadership also comes with a certain responsibility. That responsibility even becomes bigger when you are sitting either in a television studio or in a radio studio and communicating publicly to the whole of Ghana. You must have a self-restraint and a self-discipline to recognize that because of your leadership, what you say can have an impact that is negative on the psyche and the generality of the Ghanaian populace.
Right.
That discipline should hold you accountable in what you say. You cannot say that you were not able to control yourself because you are in a friendly environment. If we begin to allow that, then we are implicitly saying that it can happen. I want to believe that leadership comes with a certain discipline, a certain code of conduct. And that code of conduct begins with self-accountability before anybody then can remind us of our responsibility.
And finally, before we drop this conversation, now, these were two major political parties who met. Let me find out that in this whole episode of what is going to happen on August 29, how insignificant will be the other political parties in Ghana? Do we need to engage them in what we're doing, discussing, talking about peace?
You frame it nicely. You see, the groundswell of the messages for the stability of the state, the peace that we have, the unity that we have, as you can see, it has come to prevail. And it has come to weigh heavily on the conscience of all of us. We need to continue this. And once we do that, we need to continue to educate ourselves that going to court is integrated in the settlement of disputes when we organize elections. And let us not make it look like it's a big surprise or it's a big issue when somebody goes to court to present a petition because the person disagrees with the outcome of the election. It is integral to our election laws. And for that matter, the functions of the state in the hands of the judiciary unfolds naturally to be able to make a verdict and to determine that outcome. And if we can understand it in this way, we don't allow 29th to become so extraordinary in terms of the anxiety it brings, but we appreciate it within the context of part of our election process, which then says that in that election process, there is only one alternative if you have a problem with the outcome, and that alternative is you go to court. And that is what has happened and will be concluded on the 29th of December.
And for instance, if you listen to Dr. Kwabena J at that meeting with the National Security, he said that in every party, every political party, there are the Doves and the Hawks. And he said that his party knows the Hawks and perhaps they will try and control them. But let me find out from before we drop this conversation again. Now, how strong, how effective can the Doves be in controlling the Hawks in political parties?
Let me say that the society at large, the Ghanaian society at large, has come to acknowledge, appreciate, and reward the Hawks. So even some Doves are trying to be Hawks because it is when you are a Hawk that you are noticed. It is when you are a Hawk that you are given a certain credential. Can we change the rules from now on and say that those who are Doves and who stand for the unity of this country, regardless of the political competition, are rather the ones that we should be rewarding, are rather the ones that we should be appreciating, so that the Hawks begin to realize that you don't benefit, you don't gain by being a Hawk. And that, for me, is civil society at large, the media at large, the political parties, and everybody to hold the Hawks accountable to their behavior and let them realize that you are a leader when you are a peacemaker and not when you are seen to be a warrior in television studios and on radio stations.
Thank you so much for speaking to me. Dr. Emmanuel Bombante is the Executive Director of the West African Network for Peace Building, talking to me there about what has just happened today. The NDC and the NPP having met national security to pledge their commitment to peace. I tried hard to get the NDC to speak to, but not too successful. I guess the phone lines are terrible today. But of course, we will be getting more from them later on news at 8. But a lot more of you have been talking to us about this particular issue, the NPP and the NDC pledging peace. And so let's listen to what you told us.
Religious bodies, the Peace Council, the NCC, and everybody is playing his part so that the peace that we are enjoying, we can still maintain it. So I think it's left with the individuals. We shouldn't allow ourselves to be influenced by any politician so that the peace that we are enjoying, we jeopardize it. So I think there will be peace after the verdict.
I think so because currently, even yesterday, for instance, I saw in the news that the police and the army services were doing some exercises to show the public that they are ready enough. So in case should anything happen, they are up to task.
We know by all means at the end of the whole program, peace will come. Peace will come because how the judge start expressing about the politicians, how they are doing their things now, it has been calm. It has been calm to the system. Because now if you are walking around here, you will not see any politics or anybody going around. So we know that the peace will still maintain. We will get our peace and there will not be problem.
And of course, we will be telling you more, as I told you earlier, on Newsite 8 about what happened today between the NPP, the NDC, and National Security. But let me first of all acknowledge Star Ghana for being part of this collaboration, helping to bring peace to Ghana for August 20. Now, we'll be having more collaborations with Star Ghana in arriving at the peace will come. But just before I leave, let me tell you some stories to expect when Israel Lai joins you at 8 p.m. A 28-year-old Lance Corporal with the Kakito police station in Ashaiman has been arrested for armed robbery. This was announced as a press conference in Accra. The Police Criminal Investigations Department said an accomplice of the errant cop is currently on the run. So Israel Lai will tell you more about that story at 8 o'clock. And for many students, the idea of impending exam makes them anxious of how they will fare. But the case for the students of Adidome Senior High School is different. They are not at all scared. They are upbeat about their chances of writing the exam and coming up with flying colors. We'll tell you more about these blind students on Newsite 8. And finally, the Tamale Metropolitan Assembly Girls Primary School has been demolished in an exercise by the Lands Commission, leaving more than 200 pupils without a school for now. The exercise, under the supervision of heavily armed military personnel at the old Caladan Barracks, comes at a time schools are on recess. We'll tell you more about what will happen to these kids whose school has been demolished. And you have been briefed enough. The show was brought to you by Blue Rose Limited, Shelter for All, and Star Life Assurance. My name is Bright Nanafu. Thanks so much for watching. Go to my Joe Online. You have more updates on what we discussed on today's big story. We are back with more on this very channel. Thank you so much.